Bringing in our top story panel right now on this, Nomi Prinz, who's worked for some of Wall Street's biggest firms. She now writes about politics and money. Her new book is Jacked, How Conservatives Are Picking Your Pocket, whether you voted for them or not. Dan Gainor, the former news editor, now director of the Business of Media Institute, and Ali Velshi is back. So, if the big oil people are saying you just can't do this, can you explain to us why 42% of all Americans in this latest Gallup poll believe that the Bush administration is manipulating gas prices?
Well, two things. One is people who follow politics more than I do have told me that 42% is closely tied to people who just generally don't like George Bush or his disapproval rating. But number two, whether or not big oil is doing this is separate from whether or not they can do it. They certainly can. There are all sorts of ways to manipulate the price of gas, so it could be done. Whether anybody would ever be able to find out if it has been done, I think Dr. Rao might have been onto something, that if the Democrats take Congress, they've already threatened the oil industry with all sorts of things. I don't think big oil wants to see that happen. They don't need Bush to call them.
Do you really believe that the president can pick up the phone and strategically place 10 phone calls and ask his friends in Saudi Arabia to dump a bunch of oil on the market, and that has the same impact as economic and geopolitical forces?
No, I don't believe Bush called his friends or shorted the market and called his brokers. But what I do believe is that when the administration, with its friends, as Ali has mentioned and as we know happen, and looking at the polls, have the ability to do something to manipulate markets, which can be done with both data and psychologically, they will do that. And this is a situation where they have. The price of gas has dropped by far too much, given all the reasons that they used to cite, including supply and demand issues, unrest in Iraq, what's going on with Iran. None of that has changed.
Dan, what about it? You've got the consumers out there scratching their heads saying, wait a minute, in the last 6 weeks alone, we've seen the price of gas go down on average 60 cents per gallon. You understand why they're cynical about this, don't you?
Well, this is just ridiculous. I mean, we've got a situation here where gas prices have dropped. They always drop after summer driving season. What we've got instead is several things that were predicted to be bad didn't happen. We have a situation where BP, the pipeline, wasn't as bad as people thought. We didn't have very many hurricanes. And of course, by the way, we have one of the largest oil discoveries in the history of the United States. It has an impact.
Paula, Dad's half right. A lot of the bad things didn't happen, but it's not true that gas prices always drop after the summer driving season. In fact, I researched the last 16 years. 10 times they went down, 5 times they went up, and once they were flat. And one of those times they went up was because of Katrina. So it's not a given that when summer driving season's over, it's probably a big part of the reason, but it can't discount the fact that there are other reasons.
Nomi, if the government has as much control over this as you say it does, why would it let prices get so high in the first place?
Well, there's two things. There's the relationship that the government has to the companies that are making money. After Katrina, you had gas companies have their highest profitable quarter ever. You had a situation they were drawn into the Senate and had...
Yeah, but of course you know what their argument was. That was after making years and years of investments, and they were finally reaping the harvest of those billions of dollars they spent.
Absolutely, and they went on to do that. But what was interesting about what's happening now with gas prices is the timing and the other ways that the administration has to manipulate psychology and the market. On August 7th, the Department of Energy came across the street with the fact that gas prices were at their highest over the year, over $3.07 on average per gallon. The next day, the Federal Reserve comes in, doesn't hike interest rates again, as they have been doing for 2 years, and says this is because energy prices are moderating after the highest day.
Dan, you got 10 seconds to react to that.
Well, the whole idea that the government is conspiring, it just defies logic, because, of course, if they were trying to help Bush now, why weren't they trying to help Republicans before this? And, you know, he's been getting beaten up on gas prices for 2 years.
All right, Tree, I'll leave it there. Dan Gainor, Nomi Prinz, Ali Velshi, thank you all. You'll have to come back. I'm sure we'll be talking about this leading right up to the